Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Easter Shore Talk, your podcast for all things self care and movies. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We're glad to have you. This is episode 62. I'm Jay Watson.
And I'm Cathy Castle.
And Kathy and I are going to talk a little bit about practicing grace, how having having grace for folks that we sometimes feel don't always deserve it, how important that is to having us have a more positive mindset, and thus helping us out with the self care end of things in the mindset field of self care. But before we get into our topic, we're going to do a little check in. So, what's going on in the Castle?
Hey, can't you tell? Look how haggard I look today. We are. I feel like every week I'm like, oh my gosh, we're overwhelmed in the Castle. But we experienced our last Easton High School Warrior baseball game on Saturday, so we're like, do. And we stood on the field, us and some other parents, and we're like, now what are we going to do? We've been on that dirt for 23 years since my oldest was 4. So, bittersweet. I know that I think I even texted you. I know I'm lucky. We're very grateful that we've been able to enjoy 4 sons watching them play a sport, but I just, I, you know how life is. You've
Yeah.
probably heard me. Oh my gosh, I have to go to a game again. I'm eating at 9 o'clock. It's cold. It's hot. Whatever, there's so much. I missed my vacation because now we're going to this tournament or somebody won and now we're in this competition. I've had trips canceled because of, you know, whatever.
Travel, yeah.
But now when it's all over, I'm like, I even struggled in Dick's Sporting Goods the other day. I'm like, oh, we're not
Can't
going
get
to
the
buy any more
equipment.
cleats, no more baseball, anything. What am I going to do? I can't even. I'm getting triggered in Dick's Sporting Goods. But what a ride! What a run! What a run!
So was it weird because when the game started, I'm sure you were aware that it was possible it could be your last game
Yeah,
because it's the playoffs, and if they lose, they're finished.
yeah.
But they could also kept on going. So was it like a weird dynamic when the game started? Because that you always want them to win, but was it like an extra level of like
Oh
weird
yeah. I thought
anxiety in your
I
mind?
felt like I was going to throw up.
Yeah,
Yes. I'm like pacing. I couldn't sit still, because I'm what if, and yeah, what if?
so
And
how did the senior boys, how did they all kind of react to it?
well, and it nine of them are like the whole team, not the whole team, but there's only like 4 left.
Yeah,
Um, well, you could see when it was done. You knew it was done, and like I know we all know our own very well, right? When he's taking his last jog out to the field, I'm like just feeling it, and I know what he's thinking. This is the last time I'm going to right field or the last at bat. You could just feel it in these kids. And when they were done, they all went away from everybody, and I could see them on their knees, look like maybe they said a prayer with one another, and they were a lot of gratitude shared and a lot of hugs and you know, some tears, and
yeah,
it was wild. And it's like, you play baseball. It's like
yep.
it's just I don't know. It is the American sport, but it's like being on a team is just so many lessons. I never played a sport, but obviously I've watched all you guys all your lives and watching my kids and what great lessons you learn from
So really, your time at what used to be called Black and Decker Field is now
it.
Warrior Field or Matt Blue Field,
Yeah.
goes back to probably '83 because that's really when our group kind of began to be on the high school baseball team.
And there was Legion games there too. Would that have been before or after you
That would
guys?
have been kind of during that. It's
Yeah.
I think you can play a year or two after.
They had lights and good hot dogs. I know that.
Oh yeah.
It was something to
Um,
do at night. Yeah.
so you've been going to that field watching somebody for
Over
42,
40 years.
42 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
watching the home team. So it's just it's weird. It's so weird. Like, yeah, I'm like, can somebody coach? Can we like what can we do here? That's our dirt.
So now you kind of go from the end of one chapter to you got a couple new chapters starting. Dylan's graduating high school. He's going to start college in the fall, and you got your oldest is getting married next month. So
Another and
you
then
got all
a
kind of
college
you got all
graduate.
kind of chapters turning at the same time.
Tristan graduates from college. He's going to be a teacher. It's like, man, man. I was just talking to a coworker today who has two daughters that are young, and I was, he's much younger than we are, and I'm like, you know what? You're a real good guy. Mike Rhodes is his name, and his wife has alternative therapy, but I'm like, Mike, I love that you take care of your mom, you do things with her, you do things family. And he said, I know, Kathy, but these girls, time goes so quick. I was like, oh, hold on. It will.
Yeah.
Father, I said, Father Time and Mother Nature must have been married at some point. They are not friendlies. They will
No.
take it from you, right? They will she throws some weather at you, he speeds your life up.
Well, he also brings you experience. So I think they both give you a mixed bag.
A mixed bag is right. But
Yeah.
I just sending love to all the moms, dads, aunts, uncles,
Yeah. All the baseball supporters. Yeah.
and anybody that
Or any
supports
sport.
kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I even have friends at work that don't have children, and they're like, "There are work nieces and nephews." There's so many people that support children. It makes my heart feel really full, but it also hurts a lot. And a lot of people are hurting right now with the finale of lots of things.
Not when you texted me the other day. I asked you about if any of your boys had any interest in coaching because that you, you you may not be done on baseball fields.
Then I'll be fussing again, won't I?
It'll be a whole, but it's a whole different thing. I think if you're like there as the mother of the coach of the team versus, you know what I mean? Because
What
then you kind of pull for everybody equally.
what the end of at the very last picture I took was Jaden next to Albert, who is graduate with us and who's Eastern High coach. They were next to each other on the fence, looking at the field, and I was like, maybe he can talk him into this.
Yeah, I'm surprised. You know,
They got to get out there. It's in their blood. They got to get out
yeah,
there. Their
I
school
know.
teachers, at least my school teachers, got to get out there.
A lot of those that those younger generation baseball players end up going to coach travel ball. I know Jack Venner coaches not you, the little boys. Coaches the young boys.
He's funny. Jack's funny.
Him and Nathan Howell coach that team together.
Mm, yeah,
Um, and,
yeah.
Nathan was not a he enjoyed baseball, and he could have gone he went to Salisbury for baseball,
Oh, okay.
and then didn't like the whole college scene, so he ended up doing all his schooling online. It's good to see that he got back into the coaching side because he's real good like that. It's interesting that he kind of picked him and Jack kind of picked the
The littles,
9-year-olds.
right? The little.
It's probably about as little as it goes for travel ball, because I would think, well, I coached 1 year senior league, and
Good
I
for you.
loved it. And I've had people that coach women's or girls softball ask me to help them, and I'm like, I don't know that I
Yeah.
can do girls because I'm like, I picture girls playing softball as it's mostly social, and you just happen to play softball in between socialization. And I'm like, I couldn't do that. So I don't know that I would have the patience to do little kids because their attention is not going to be there. It's just not.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
if it's travel ball, then they're kind of choosing like during the summer to go
Yeah.
travel. So maybe those are the kids that just love baseball. So it might be different. But
Good stuff. Good times.
yeah. So yeah, today we're going to jump into
Yeah.
something that we kind of touched on this a little bit last year, Kathy, when we talked about
And
navigating anger and forgiveness. We talked a little bit about how having grace for others kind of intertwines with that theme a little bit, and
well,
it's funny. I get kind of ideas for topics in the strangest places sometimes, and you know that I watch a lot of documentaries, a lot of true
yeah,
crime, that kind of thing, and I've noticed that although I'm a history buff as far as like I enjoy true life, true stories of whatever they are because I get a chance to learn whatever. And some of the stories are not the most wonderful stories, like the Gabby Petito
yeah,
documentary that we both watched. But I'm finding as I'm watching those things, my mind also goes to when there's a you know for example the Gabby Petito story. Her boyfriend was the villain of that story. We'll just
right.
say I find myself thinking, okay, what's going on in that young man's life where he is in that place?
Yeah,
And I got to thinking about that. I'm like, that's grace when you're like, okay, this person did these horrible things, and I'm not excusing them at all, but at the same
right.
time, I'm thinking, what was what was going on with this person that they got to that place in their own mind or in their mental health or whatever it was that they did the horrible things that they did. It still means that they were wrong and they shouldn't have done those things and they shouldn't pay for they shouldn't be accountable at all. But it's so that as I'm rolling through all these documentaries and I keep thinking about that, I'm like, wait a minute. And then of course I go back to my story where, as I've talked about before, the biggest hurdle for me was overcoming the anger towards my parents. And if you're new to Eastern Shore Talk, you may not have heard me talk about how I was born. Both my parents were addicts, so they were both unwilling and unable to be parents in any meaningful way. Then I went through some childhood trauma, and I didn't have a foundation to kind of lean on to kind of get me through those things. It was the anger that I had the most trouble navigating as I got older than the actual remembering the events themselves. And because in my mind, Kathy, I was, the only way that they were going to be punished or held accountable for not being my parents was my anger. Their only punishment. The only way that they were going to be held accountable in any way. And as I learned as I got older, it doesn't work that way. Um, but part of being able to forgive them and kind of shake that anger was having grace for them and trying to come to an understanding and a realization of some things that they were going on in their lives prior to me ever coming into the picture as their child. It doesn't mean that they were that doesn't mean that they that what they did was not wrong as far as being parents. It doesn't mean that they got away with not being parents. It doesn't mean any of that. There two things can be true at the same time. So I know for me it was just like a big cloud once I was able to have grace for both of them. Um, we talk about trying to take those negative mindset things and replace them with positive. I was able to kind of you know adjust that huge negative thing that was stuck in my mind, that anger towards my parents, and kind of now I had space for the good stuff. And over the process of years and really sorting that out, um, having
Well,
grace, at least for me, was a big help. And it's kind of similar. Compassion, not really, but it's kind of similar. But uh, grace, especially when we're talking, well, at least for the purpose of what I'm talking about, when grace for other people, um, they kind of they go hand in hand with navigating anger and forgiveness. That I think you have to. I feel like you have to have grace, or grace is a big tool to have to go to be able to forgive. Um,
Well,
so
what about, I found a definition.
okay,
You have done incredible work, my friends, and I'm in awe of you on how you've taken really difficult situations in your life and you found the positive and you have found the forgiveness and the grace. Um, I don't understand what that's like, but um, I hold some pretty big space for you and am very proud of the work you've done to stay here today and be my really good pal and do these podcasts, right? To help other
yeah,
people. But I thought it might be helpful to talk about what the definition, to give a
yep,
work definition of
sure,
grace, because, um, when you told me about the topic, um, I was thinking maybe in very simplistic terms, what do people think of when we say that?
right,
Like people are familiar with eating and saying grace,
right,
or they're familiar with the term God's grace, or give yourself some grace. But what the heck does it mean? You know
yeah,
what I mean? Because it's not, I think it's maybe a misunderstood term. I'm wondering if it's a misunderstood term. It's not
probably,
necessarily common.
yeah,
I mean, it is, but it isn't. So, anyway, here is one that I found that I really like. In self care, grace means, now this is talking about yourself, because to me, grace can be either for yourself, and you've done that work as well, for yourself or
or
toward
for
another
others,
person. That's
yes,
my opinion.
yep,
But this definition, this working definition is really talking about self, but it can be applied either way. In self care, grace means offering yourself kindness, acceptance, and forgiveness for imperfections and mistakes. You've really talked about that with your parents. Doing so would much like be what you would do for a friend. Maybe you did that for your 6-year-old self. It involves acknowledging your humanity, setting realistic expectations, and practicing self compassion. This allows you to move forward with resilience, a word I really like, and a more positive mindset rather than dwelling on past errors. So, this definition is like, listen, we're going to practice, whether it's for yourself or others, acceptance, kindness, forgiveness, acknowledging that imperfections and mistakes happen, are part of our life, but giving that compassion to move past it, right? And to be resilient, to bounce back up, and to focus on positive, and don't just dwell on the negative.
yeah.
So
And the
I thought
most
that was a
important,
good one.
yeah, the most important. Well, first of all, yes, it's very important to have grace for oneself and for others. They kind of go hand in hand, I think. But the most important thing you said of all that was it enables you to have a more positive mindset, and that's one of the two, I call them the two categories of self care. There is um, the building, growing, and strengthening of mind, body, and soul, and then there's the mindset shifters. There's the things that get us to a more positive mindset, and we've talked about a million times. Like we talked just last week about um, negative self talk, and
Yeah.
um, there's a million self care tools that kind of help us to get to enable ourselves to be more prepared to have a more positive mindset than a negative mindset. And grace for ourselves and for others is one of those things. Um, and sometimes, um, I had difficult with both of those, Kathy. Like I said just a few
Yeah.
minutes ago, finally having grace for my parents was extremely difficult for me. And then I went through a period of time actually where I was beating myself up because I didn't learn that sooner. I
Yeah.
kept I kept kicking myself like, gosh, it seems so simple and easy now.
Right.
Why didn't I learn it 5 years ago or when I was 18 or whatever? And you know, we can't really go there.
Well, and another thing I feel like as a part of this is, maybe this is natural, I don't know, that we give ourselves labels, negative labels. and I've done some work with that, and there's probably several labels that I would put on myself. I can name positives too, but we can all pick out
Yep.
negatives. And the number one, maybe I've said this before, number one label I put on myself is burden. I'm a burden. Now, whatever, I could talk myself out of that. I could say that's silly, whatever, but it's still always there. So part of this giving yourself grace is to stop with the self criticism.
Yeah.
Stop saying you're a burden, you
Yeah.
know?
No more negative self talk like we talked about last week. Yeah.
So I think everybody puts those or there's that burden word. Everybody puts those labels on
You know
themselves.
what mine was when I was younger?
Mm,
Unlovable.
unlovable. And I bet you a lot of people have that one, wouldn't you
Yeah.
say?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
When you don't, when the people that are supposed to automatically love you don't seem to,
Don't love
how
you.
how can you not go there? Especially when you're younger. Yeah.
Because if so, they would
Yeah.
it wouldn't be the way it was, right?
Yeah. But let me be clear. I'm grateful for all of it. And that's where the grace for myself comes in because I'm not. The Easter Shore Talk podcast doesn't exist if I don't go through what I went through. I don't. I don't. I'm not the Lord's messenger if I don't go through what I went through. The Lord gives His toughest battles to His strongest soldiers. Um,
Yeah.
so my very best qualities are because of what I went through, not in spite of them. So um, I once I kind of latched on to that, the ideal that my path was supposed to be that way, as sucky as it was in my younger years. Um, there was a
Yeah.
brighter time ahead that it doesn't happen without those. And and the other thing, Kathy, is I don't know that I appreciated the good stuff as much. If when you struggle, then when the good comes around, you seem to at least I do tend to appreciate it more because you know the other side of that coin. So you tend to appreciate the good stuff. And yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there.
But you've accomplished something that's really difficult. I mean, there are people that have done some pretty horrible things, and this is just because it's in the news right now. Is just the Diddy, the story of,
Yeah,
and it's like, God bless. That is some hard
yeah.
stuff to
Well,
listen to.
his documentary was one of the ones where in my mind I'm thinking,
I didn't even watch that.
what was going on in his life?
Was there
And
one? There is a documentary of him,
hmm yep.
but wow. I mean, wow.
And look again, I want to be very clear when I say this. It's not an excuse.
Right.
I'm not excusing, but my probably I don't know that I'm one of the very few that when I watch documentary, my mind goes that way automatically because I'm analyzing
Yeah.
the why. I'm a why person, Kathy. We've talked about that a ton. So I'm
Well,
thinking,
wait, and we defined this before when we talked about forgiveness, right? That forgiveness is not an excuse. I think you're the one who said it, but it gives you the permission to move on, right?
yes,
I forget how exactly you said it, but it was a really nice definition.
yeah, but yeah,
It
I
doesn't
mean,
make it doesn't erase it, doesn't
I
justify it.
know
It it,
all the
it
things that Diddy is accused of, that he's alleged to have done, if he
yeah,
did them, it's still wrong. It doesn't make it any less wrong
no.
for. And look, I don't have a dog in the fight. I wasn't affected by what he did, but there, many others may have been. Um, and whether they decide to give him grace for their process is up to them. But if they do, it doesn't mean that what he did he got away with it. It doesn't mean that he's being less accountable at all. It's they're going to stop punishing themselves by instead of worrying about punishing him. Um, yeah, and it's hard. It's so hard. That whole
Yeah.
anger forgiveness thing that's a tricky thing.
It
Um,
is tricky, and when you're someone who hasn't completely processed maybe or
yeah,
dealt with the grief associated with the situation that happened, uh, it's probably even more difficult. I mean,
yeah,
grief is in there too, and having to deal with whatever the loss is. Like for
yeah,
you, It was probably grief on many levels.
Oh yeah, and my thing, Kathy, was, I mean, yeah, there's the basic and easy part where they just weren't there for me. They kind of left me up, left me to hang, so to speak. But I was also, it was kind of like they robbed me of my childhood.
Yeah.
Looking back, so that was that. A lot of my anger was directed in that way. Um, but they both had some stuff going on in their lives that um, very reasonably contributed to why they were the way they were. They were still wrong. They were still lousy parents. None of that changes. Um, but I can't control that. Number one, because it happened so long ago. Number two, because it's not me, so I don't have any control over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that's a tough hurdle to come to the realization that you're not letting them off the hook. You're letting yourself off the hook. Um,
I was talking with a family. I was only talking with one part of the family, but anyway, somebody that is close to me actually, and the uh, person I was talking to, I don't know, probably in his 40s, and the dad's late 70s, but so much anger in that relationship, so much grief and loss, and on both sides, and I'm sure this happens just in all families all over the place, like the son feeling that the father was absent, and the father feeling like I don't know how to repair that relationship, and I know I was absent, and then all the behaviors just come out so hurtful and ugly. And how do you get to the point where you can have grace for each other and get past the grief
what's
that
that?
got
What's
you?
that saying that Marty says all the time? He says something is the thief of something. What is it?
Oh yeah, of all joy. Shoot. Oh, is it envy? Uh, he does say it all the time. I can't think of it. Something is the thief of. I'm gonna text him. What's the thief of all joy?
And it makes me think about. And now I'll plug the word anger in there because anger is kind of like that too. You're stealing your own.
Comparison is the thief of all joy.
Yes, yes. Now take out comparison and put in anger. It's like you're stealing your own joy by filling your head with this big negative thing of
Story.
anger. And it's
Yeah.
look, it's way easier said than done. And like I've said before, there's a difference between feeling angry and being angry. There's those thought, I'm one guilty as charged when I'm driving. Oh, I get frustrated with people when I'm other drivers or whatever, and I don't like. I've never confronted anybody, but like inside my car, I'm yelling at them. They can't hear me, but I'm that person, unfortunately. Um, but I'm angry in the
We
minute when
all
I
got
get to.
some of
Yeah,
it.
but I'm angry for the moment. When I get to where I'm going, I'm done. I'm not angry anymore. It's feeling angry is very time specific. In the moment, for a day, whatever. If it's over a long period of time, you're now choosing that. You're now choosing to be angry. It's no longer about feeling anger at the time. It's now a choice. So if you've chosen to be it, you can now choose to go in a different direction and not be it, as hard as that is, and to as long as it may take. But you're
you
kind of
know, I was talking with a trainer that was teaching something at work, a channel marker, and he was talking about the word resiliency, and uh, you know, resiliency is really an important tool to get back up, right? When we're knocked down, you think of resiliency like that. I'm resilient, I can bounce back. But he even challenged that there's one more word, even more powerful than resiliency, and that's grit. That's an interesting concept, right? There's a book about grit written by Angela Duckworth. There's a TED talk as well, but grit's an interesting word. I like it. Not only is Jay resilient from what happened, Jay got a little gritty, right? Which
not
is
like nitty gritty.
and also it's better than the sh on front of it. But
better gritty than shitty.
Yeah, but it's good to be gritty, and that's where your fight and your warrior comes out, and you can get on with your life. It's interesting concepts.
I remember I used to be a Dr. Phil fan. I used to love watching Dr. Phil, and like so many things, his little sayings. He was talking to. He had a person on the show one time, and they were, they were talking about how this person couldn't get past whatever they were dealing with, and Dr. Phil said something along the lines of, "You need to get to the point where you're indifferent. In other words, you're not thinking about that person, good or bad. You're not thinking about them at all. You're so clear of it. It's not a thought one way or the other.
They're not taking up space in your head.
Yes, and
Right, they're
that's
getting to your neutral. I keep using your term. You might not have coined it. In my mind, you coined it. Got to get to neutral.
yeah,
I have been using the heck out of it ever since you said that. I
yeah.
like it.
That was kind of his way of saying that. Get to indifferent, where you're not,
It's
you're
the same thing you said. Yeah.
yeah, um,
But what an easier way to think about something. And I can't believe I've never thought of this myself. But when you're down and out, we shoot probably way too high. So what
yes,
I love about your theory of getting to neutral, if you're thinking about a car, is you can see neutral, get
yeah,
to it, and if
yeah,
you can get there and calm down, like you're not ready to run the car off the road,
yeah.
get to neutral, literally,
You
then
can't take 10 steps in the moment, but you might be able to take one or two to get
yeah,
you closer to where you need to be.
yeah,
Um, Neutral is just a better goal right now in
right,
the moment.
yeah,
Um, yes, if you're doing vision boards and long term planning, yes, you want to get to 10 a year from now, whatever that is, or you're going through the process of whatever you're dealing with. The ultimate goal is to be as high on the scale as you can long term, absolutely. But in the moment when you're feeling those physical anxiety shakes and chill things, and
tension, stress,
yes, and you like pacing back and forth and all that good, all the things that I do in that very moment, I can neutral is an attainable goal for me in that very moment. Um,
I like that. That's such good advice for anybody. And how do we get to neutral?
yeah,
Self care.
yeah, self care. Take a walk. Put your AirPods in. Change your external environment, but also change your internal environment. Meaning, okay, give me some positive stimulus so that the external environment changes the internal environment.
I'll tell you
Um,
where I'm having trouble getting to neutral sometimes is in the middle of the daggone night. Oh my gosh. I feel like I'll conquer it and then I'm back there again where I'm like my brain is solving the world's problem in the middle of the night. Hi. It's a tough one.
and I
Especially when
think
you
I
have a
think
lot on you.
grace kind of, in a weird way, Kathy, could be used. You know, and I'll just use the younger generation as an example because they're more in tune with and dependent on social media typically. Not always, but typically than say folks our age. Although there are those in our age that are as well. But anyway,
Yeah.
and having grace for all the negative Nancy's on social media that irritate whoever. You read posts that you may not agree with, or
Yeah.
somebody posts something not so positive on your feed or whatever. Um, it's easy to kind of chirp back and get into this online battle of words on the keyboard or on your
Yeah.
phone or whatever. But I do it all the time where not necessarily on my page, but I'll just see someone will just
Yeah.
do a general post, and it's so stinking negative, and I'm just like, I kind of shake my head and I keep on scrolling, and I'm just like, again, I go to the why. I'm like, okay, what's this really about? Because usually, especially with anger, when we, like I was just talking about a few minutes ago, when we choose anger and we're not feeling anger in the moment, when we choose anger, anger is always right there. In other words, something happens and we lash out. But it's not really that thing we're lashing out at is that we're angry about. It's that thing that we're that's stuck in our head that we're not dealing with that causes us to lash out at our family or friends or these other things that don't have anything to do with why we're really angry. Um, so you're having grace for those knuckleheads on social media that just want to just throw crap out there all the time and just be like, there must
Yeah.
be something going. If they're this angry, this is not what they're really angry about. They're not really angry about what something that happened at a town council meeting. They're angry about something in their own lives. And
And
this
they
is
don't even know. They don't
yeah,
even understand
no,
because,
and that's the tough thing. Sometimes we don't know, and that's we can't address it if we don't know, if we
well,
don't know
I
why.
agree with you. That's disappointing when you see that kind of stuff because we all have our own opinions and we're not going to be alike. But I really do hate when everybody just gets really mean and insulting on social, and you see it. And then you, like you said, the battle goes.
I
But
think, Kathy, there are people, and it's not a small segment of people that will get into these debates online because they're trying to talk the other person into having their point of view. They're trying to change their mind.
or say their point of view is right or wrong,
Yes,
which it might be partially right, it might be partially wrong. I don't know. I'm sure I don't think like everybody, and if we did,
and
or,
usually
or
it's strangers because if it's somebody you're going to have that conversation privately with that. If it's a friend,
well, some people don't.
yeah, well, but usually it's people that don't know each other that are barking back and forth at each other
Well, that just
on
goes to adults don't have if we need to go back and have the manners that what is the things you learn in kindergarten. There's a lot of times where I'm like, come on, be better
yeah,
than that.
the
Like,
golden
don't
rule, all this stuff.
don't
Yeah.
do it. Don't. There's just things you don't talk about
Well, stop
on
being so
social media.
freaking dependent on social media for one thing.
And
It's
you don't even know if half the stuff you're saying is true. Seeing is true.
yeah,
It's like I have to be really careful. Like I got really excited and almost screenshotted something and sent it to you because it was about Stranger Things, and I'm like, this is not true. I was like, wait, what? Oh my gosh, Jay's gonna love this, and I'm like, yeah. And then I googled it, and it was so not true.
yeah.
So social media has such crap on it too that you just can't believe.
So, Kathy, is there any times in your life that you can think of where either where you learn to have grace about certain things, or maybe there's a part of your life where you need to learn to have more grace about either with yourself or with others. Um, I know they're kind of two opposite things, but
Oh
just
yeah.
trying to kind of speak about how grace works in your life, you personally.
Well, I definitely beat myself up a lot. Um, I always have,
Yeah,
or I'll be, if it's almost like take work, for example. If work is a bit out of sorts and I feel like people aren't happy, meaning staff, um, I'll beat myself up with that. I'll think, it comes from the top down, and I've missed something, or I haven't supported people enough, and I'll really can get down about that, honestly. Where I have to really, I do have to give myself some grace, and I do have to do some different coaching of my own self to bring myself out of that kind of negative thinking because that's not helping anybody and that's not being a strong leader. So I can kind of identify that in that setting, and I rely on then a lot of support systems to kind of talk it out. So that's kind of how I do it in that situation. Where I fail miserably is with young adult children, teenage children. When something's going down a wild path, I'm like, oh, and I still haven't figured that one out yet. And listen, my kids are good kids, but
yeah,
we'll have the battle of the relationship sometimes.
yeah. You feel you. So you're saying you kind of sometimes feel like you need to give them the grace of being young adults still trying to figure themselves out.
Well, I give them grace, and then I take it back.
Depends on what day it is.
Or I'm like, what are you doing? Because it's definitely hard to watch somebody you love, whether it's you know your aging parents, your growing up kids. It's hard to watch somebody make some decisions that you may not think are in your best interest. My mom is having some issues, for example, and then I'll feel like she's not helping herself, and it's
Right.
hard to, it's just
Yeah.
hard. But we're not in control of everything. That's for
Tell you,
sure.
it's funny, Kathy. There's this strange dynamic that kind of occurs in my life where I've kind of found a comfortable lane as far as this whole self care, wellness, this whole experience with Eastern Shore Talk in all its versions has kind of introduced me to a lot of like minded folks that,
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed connecting with. And I feel really comfortable in that lane. But here's the weird thing: as comfortable as I feel in that lane, generally speaking, there are times, for example, that very first tabling event I did last year at Idlewild, I had big time imposter syndrome. I'm like, I don't fit here. I don't belong here.
Mhm.
I'm not one of these people that have dedicated their lives to this thing. Um, so it's it's so strange how, like you said, it depends on what day it is.
Yeah.
There are some times where I'm like, I fit
I,
so well here. I'm so comfortable. Yes, thank you, gratitude. And then there's these things that pop up. I'm like,
I don't want to
yes,
do it.
yes, but I'm not to that person's
Yeah.
level. I'm not. I'm not that I'm ever going to have 30 plus years of clinical experience like Cathy Castle does, but you know, folks that have been doing it for much longer in whatever capacity. I'm
Yeah,
like,
but you know what?
I'm not there, so I kind of I lower myself to where I feel society fits me instead of where I feel I have the ability to fit. If that makes sense, and
But we're all
that's kind of hard.
humans, you know? I mean, I
Yeah,
don't care how much clinical experience I have. I don't care how much mental health experience I have. I'm a human being, and some days I'm a mess.
right.
Some days I'm like, I have no idea. Some days I'm like, I see neutral, but I don't even know how I'm getting there right now. I mean, we're human beings, and maybe that's part of grace is that you acknowledge I'm not a perfect being.
Yeah,
I have work to do every day. I'm a constant learner. I think you probably are as well.
yeah. I
And
love to learn. Yeah,
learning, wow, I wish that I had that mindset back in high school. you know, because you just want to get it over with. But man, I should have paid more attention, I think. But I like to learn, and I think part of learning is also learning about yourself, not learning about other things, but learning,
that's the most important thing to learn about. That's
and we're not going to get it right. I mean, I'm going to get it right for a while, then I'm going to get it wrong, and then I'm going to have to figure out how to get it right again after I get to neutral, right?
so it's important to have grace for yourself at all times because we know we're all human and we're not going to get it right. We shoot the average human probably fails far more often than they succeed, and
It's like baseball,
even in their an objective point of view.
but
Oh
it
yeah,
is like baseball. Some
yeah,
days you're going to get up and you're going to get the home run, but most days you're not. And a lot of days you're going to strike out. And some days you're going to get hit with the dang ball. That is
yeah.
such life.
And the thing is, Kathy, if and look, if we go, any of us, if we go through what we think is a long period of time with failure, that it can get to any of us.
Yeah,
But the thing is, we learn more from our failures than we do our successes
yeah.
easily.
That's why
Um,
that 409, they failed 408 times
yeah,
before they had the cleaner.
WD-40 was the same way.
But yeah,
Seriously.
409 had a harder time than I'd say than WD-40,
um,
argumentatively. But yeah, and I don't know. Why do we think I don't know. I think we are hard on ourselves. We think that we should have it figured out all the time.
you know why? That's it, because we're comparing. We think that everybody else around us has it figured
And
out.
we're back to comparing is the thief of all joy.
Yes, we look at everybody else and say, because they're putting on what they want you to see. They don't have it figured out any more than we do.
You're
But they
right.
want you to think that, so
Yeah.
all their social media posts are all these wonderful things. Behind the scenes, it's like, what's that
Except
thing?
for you and me who are exposing our vulnerabilities every week.
Yeah. What's that picture of a duck like on the surface? You don't see anything, but under the surface his legs are
Uh,
flailing. trying to get where he's
Oh,
trying to go.
yeah, he's trying to get to neutral.
Yeah, but it's that we want to fit in so bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's we'll
yeah,
go down that whole social media thing again because I'd love to talk about that again.
I
Um,
know it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
just sure, it's important to have grace for others, especially others who may have wronged us, and in whatever capacity. But have enough grace for yourself to realize that you're not going to get it right. It might take you 10 tries to get what do whatever. And
Well, and there's something else that you say. You, you've said this many times, Jay, and I like it. So if you are struggling, you can't get yourself to grace. You feel like life's just a constant assault attacking you. You've always said that a good self care practices. You could say, "Oh, I'll do self care." You've always said do something you like, and and that just simplifies it. You
yes,
always come up with nice simple things, which I really enjoy, Jay. Is that get to neutral, find something you like.
yep,
That's the world according to Jay. I like both of those things. And what you've done is you know what you've I'm going to tell you what that means. Neutral means you've self-regulated. Find something you like means you've just adopted a self-care habit. But you put them into nice everyday usable terms, and I love that.
yeah. My things that I enjoy. That's kind of what we've kind of beat the definition of self care to death. It's find those things that are identifiable to you, and they're going to be different for everybody, like we've talked about a million times. And you kind of not only are they important when you get out of whack, like me trying to get to neutral. And those are the things that get me to neutral. But they're also good to like help just maintain a because it's that constant battle with Velcro and silicone. We're trying to get to the teeter totter to be more positive than negative in our mind. If we're always feeding ourselves the joy of doing the things that we enjoy doing, then more often than not we're going to have a positive balance, or at least moving in that direction. I don't know that we're ever always. Well, none of us are ever always.
Teflon, not silicone.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
I'm
Whatever that non-stick surface stuff is on the frying pan.
like, is it silly? Anyway, so I just ruined your whole thought process.
No,
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
The, I, I'm reading something else too here that's interesting. Um, Mindfulness and self awareness. Pay attention, and we've kind of said this, but summarizes it. Pay attention to your inner dialogue, your emotions, your physical sensations, because it can help you identify I cannot talk. Let me try this again. Paying attention to your inner dialogue, your emotions, and physical sensations can help you identify triggers for negative self talk and practicing self compassion,
yeah.
right?
I
Paying
think
attention to it.
I think grace kind of
Yeah.
unclogs all that gunk in the dream.
So
That's the
Grace is
negative
Mr.
stuff.
Plumber. Get to
Yeah,
neutral, use the Mr. Plumber, which is great, and find something you like.
to do something you enjoy doing.
Maybe
Yeah,
we've coined something, right?
that's what it was, Kathy. I was. We were talking one day, and because you were talking about with some of your people that you work with, you always ask, "What are you doing for self care?" And I said, "Well, why don't you ask them what
Yeah,
are the things you enjoy doing?"
yeah. Which is such a better way to put it.
Yeah, because everybody can answer that question. Um, I think when we throw the term self care to a lot of people, they
They complicate it.
yeah, it either kind of goes over their head, or they have a misconstrued definition of what self care is, which we've talked
Yeah,
about before. Um,
yeah.
yeah, as complicated as our brains and our minds work, I think as simple as we can make it to being more have
Yeah.
a more positive mindset, the better.
And when we're under stress, it's gonna be even more of a mess, a
Yeah.
swirling mess. So get to neutral, unclog
Yeah.
the drain, and
Have grace for others and especially for yourself so that you get rid of all that negative, whether it's anger or whether it's doubt, whatever it is in your mind,
yeah,
have grace for yourself and get that out of there so you have more room for the positive stuff that you enjoy doing, and just that you're whatever you're experiencing in life, you're going to be more in tune and more present in the positive and not so stuck on your anger or your negativity or whatever it is in your mind. Take that out and replace it with better stuff. Um, do an oil change. Take the old dirty oil out and put the good oil in to help that engine work better. Um,
So you can get to neutral.
yeah. So, yep. So before we get out of here, Kathy, let's talk about what we've been watching lately.
Okay, nothing. This is probably the first time in 60, 100 episodes we've had. Nothing, nada, nothing. I got nothing. I want
So,
to. I want to watch something. And then I I was like, okay, look, I use this planner, and every 3 months get new planner, right? Thick planner, and it has goals in it. And I haven't updated my goals in a while, so you'll be proud. You'll be proud of me because one. And I always do 10. I'm writing it here. I do 10. I have like for example, I have finance, health, an intellectual goal, family time, home improvements, creativity, trips, deep work, and I put streaming. I got a Jay Watson self care streaming goal. Can you believe that? Can you believe
yeah.
it? But
Go back and watch Ted Lasso again. I'm gonna. I think I'm
well,
gonna.
no, I
We're
put
gonna have.
Agatha. Agatha. I wrote
Oh
Agatha
yeah,
because you told me about
yeah. Eggs
Agatha.
all day. Yep, that's good.
And I still gotta finish Cobra Kai, and I'm waiting. We got 3 of them coming out: Stranger Things,
Yeah, oh yeah.
Only Murders, and Lasso. I'm
Yep.
waiting, but I gotta adopt a new series that I can complain that I'm sad it's over.
Ransom Canyon is good. It's brand new on. Is it
You're still
Hulu?
watching that? I gotta write that one
I
down.
haven't
I
watched it
saw
for a
that. I
while.
saw a preview.
Yeah, it's actually good. I haven't watched it in a while, so I got to catch back up with that.
I'm gonna rate.
Um,
I'm gonna rate it.
and speaking of Lasso, we're going to have Marnie Stockman's going to come back on in a couple of weeks, and we're going to all talk about what we think to expect out of the upcoming new season of Ted Lasso
Yeah,
that they're in the process of writing right now. So the whole entire episode is going to be about that.
that's exciting. All right, give us the movie
I
rundown.
went and watched Friday. I went and watched a movie called oh crap, it's Kerry
That
Washington.
good.
It was so so a Shadow Force, and Kerry Washington's either been in like very dramatic, highly acclaimed movies, or she's done comedies. She's a spy in this movie. I would have never thought picture her as a spy. Still don't know that I really believed her totally. It was okay. I didn't fall asleep or anything, but it was kind of so so. Um, and I've been watching a Netflix series. It's a British series called Missing You.
Hmm.
Um, the British have those like have a very specific type of show on Netflix. Netflix is big on British shows for some reason, but it's pretty good so far. The woman's a cop, and her ex boyfriend from many years ago disappeared, just like literally just off the face of the earth, and he mysteriously pops back into her life when she's working on this other case, and they're tied together, so she's trying to figure out how and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a cop mystery kind of thing. It's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm looking forward to
What are we looking forward
well,
to?
all the ones you mentioned are all going to be probably this. Well, Only Murder should be the soonest one of all of them. I think
You think?
Stranger Things is probably think fall, but Only Murders has always been like June, July.
You
So
think they're done? You think they're done?
no, they're still filming because I saw
No,
on.
I mean after this season.
I don't know. I think they're just kind of seeing how it goes. Um, on Selena Gomez's Instagram page, she had some pictures from filming on set, so they're still filming. Um, but like I've said before, I'm a sucker for Love Island, and all 3 Love Islands are about to start within the next month. Australia actually starts this week, then UK, and then USA. They're all within the next month. And
Yeah,
then,
you've always been a fan of that, eh?
yeah, and it's so funny. I get so frustrated half the time, but when I see those young people like grow throughout the show, that's the part I like out of all of it.
Oh, I just realized I fit the little. I fit the little. I did watch some American Idol.
Mm. I've not been watching it. I've not been watching either one of them because they're
Just a
both.
little.
Neither show has anybody that like I'm like attached to, so I've stopped watching completely. Um,
Yeah, I do feel guilt, but I did watch some the other day, and then I just saw that they're down to three on American Idol.
yeah, they're down to three on. I don't remember. I last night I watched the opening. It was Disney night last night, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to hear these kids. I don't want to hear these people sing Disney songs. I just don't. I don't. I don't feel
I'm a
anything.
little interested in the country guy
Um, on which show?
on Idol.
Hmm.
John something.
I think the gospel guy might win it.
Yeah, he might.
He's probably the best one if I had to pick one. He's so good, but I don't know what it is. I don't
It
know.
has not been. It's not been one of their best seasons.
No, and I think as much as I do like Carrie Underwood's music,
I know.
I and look, she's
He's
not
not.
been terrible, and she's not. I'm not saying she's ruining the show by any means. It's just not the same. The
It's
dynamic is
not.
different.
No, yeah, I 100% agree. Hey, did
But
I read, or was this fake too, that Reba's coming back on The Voice? Did you see that?
that would not surprise me.
And
Um,
Niles.
Niall, he's won. He's done 2 seasons and won both seasons he was on.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
But who knows? It could be fake. It could be fake.
I mean, I do think that the judges on The Voice have been good this year. They weren't. There's not Snoop Dogg good because that was the best
Good.
combination of judges for the voices I've
I
heard.
agree.
Um, but they've still been good. Kelsey Ballerini's been good. She's done better on The Voice than Carrie Underwood has done
Mm,
on Idol as far as being a judge. And I know it's different because they're literally each judge is actually teaching the singers as they go. So, um,
I
but
think too that on Idol, Lionel and Luke, they and Katie, they just had been together so long. It was hard for.
and they're all three so different from each other.
Yeah,
Whereas now, like Carrie and Luke are pretty similar.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
again, she's not been terrible. She's done okay. It's the dynamic is just different.
yeah.
It's just like this year on The Voice. They've been fine, but there's not. Snoop Dogg
Right.
was
Snoop
like
was good.
the star of the show last year on
He
The
really
Voice.
was.
Um, I even saw where Blake Shelton might be coming back.
Oh yeah, I saw something. I don't know if it was in a judging capacity or it was another different
Yeah, so
capacity.
maybe him and Gwen will come back, and that's always interesting watching those two. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. Um, so yeah, before we get out of here, we want to remind you guys that Saturday, September 13th, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Talbot County Community Center is the Eastern Shore Self Care Expo. So we do have a few spots available. So if you're someone in the self care, wellness, mental health arena, reach out to me at eastershoretalk@gmail.com and we can discuss having you do a resource table. We'd love to have you. We're trying to show just all the resources that are. Let me back up. As we've done this podcast, Cathy, we've had so many guests on. We've
Yeah.
discovered all these providers in whatever modality that they're in, a lot of which I didn't realize existed in this small little area, but there's tons of them out there, and there's so many modalities. And I
Yeah.
just, you know, you know, at least for me, wanting to do this expo was let's show we're advocating for self care, so let's show our community just what's out there, what's available. And I mean, we've got folks from all over the self care, wellness, and mental health field.
Yeah.
Just so many different and varieties of things. And like I said, we've got a few spots available. We'd love to have you. So come out and see us then. And in the meantime, keep watching us here on the podcast. And we'll see you next week for Eastern Shore Talk. Take care, guys.